Hallo, herzlich willkommen zur 82. Folge von Suzerain zusammen mit Apfel.
Hallo.
Heute haben wir. Heute sind wir in der ATO. In Kairut. Genau. I, David Whiskey, and the rest of the Swedish delegation to the Alliance of Nations arrived in Kairut. The local police escorted us to the Alliance headquarters in downtown Constantium, immediately recognizable by its gleaming dome. On entering the building, we were met with a parliamentary guide who briefed us about the procedures. After a strict security screening, the staff ushered us to the third floor. We entered the massive circular assembly hall and took our designated seats. David sat next to me. All of the world's most powerful people under one gleaming dome. And I'm glad to be among them. Everyone's words and actions here will change the world, for better or worse. How are you feeling, Anton? Ever since what happened to Peter, I'm amazed that you've been holding up so well.
Ja, wir sind ja auch nicht schwach hier, ne?
I've seen you two hanging around all the time in university.
I hope he's in a better place now.
He was a true friend. It is tough to be the president.
Ich weiß ja nicht, ob das mit Präsidentschaft zu tun hat, dass dein bester Freund vor der Brücke springt, aber ja, geh weiter, Whisky.
Making harsh decisions and dealing with their consequences. I wish I could have supported you more, but time has been a cruel mistress. The advice wasn't that good anyway. What you have done so far is more than enough. Don't treat yourself so harshly. Come on, David. Whiskey.
Schon David.
From a distance, you could see the President of the General Assembly, Mr. Nines, approaching his designated position. Well, the session is about to start. Let's get comfortable. It's going to be a long day. Mr. Nines opened the session with a short speech and called the first speaker to the floor. It's my great pleasure to invite the Prime Minister of Lesbia to address the assembly. Patricio Alvarez stood and walked up to the podium as the assembly applauded. Alvarez warst du, oder? Wie wir nach
Hast du den schon?
Warst du noch nicht da, wie wir noch Lesbia sind?
Nee, da war ich
Verdammt,
nicht.
echt. Wie habe ich den gesprochen? Habe ich dir irgendwas Interessantes gegeben? Ich glaube nicht.
Pack dein Spanisch aus.
Nee.
Du bist der Alvarez.
Nee, ich kann kein Spanisch. Okay.
Okay.
Mr. President, it is my pleasure to return to this podium. David leaned in and spoke in a low voice. Let's see how crazy this year's session will get.
Pack die Wein aus.
I'm surprised he isn't drunk.
Ja.
David chuckled. When I last spoke here, the message I gave was the encouragement and support to this organization and the vital role it plays. Of all the challenges Eastern Macopa and the whole world has faced since then, one has grown larger and more imminent than any other. The threat of this so-called socialist state and the actions taken by the authorians, the rulers, with no regard to international law. A loud noise came from the table of Welksland. I saw Emmerich Hegel pounding his fist on the table in protest. Look at that guy. He's an embarrassment. Looks like the Chancellor is already mad. Wir sagen mal gar nichts, will ich sagen.
Ja.
Today they need to come together as the leaders of the free world. It's more important than ever. The CSP, under the leadership of United Container, has been fueling Welk's military-industrial complex and its expansionist aims in eastern Macopa. The world turned a blind eye when the armies of Welk's occupied Helgeland, and they did not stop there. Ich weiß es wieder nicht, war Welk's waren die hier, okay. Die sind nicht hier eingefallen jetzt. According to our intelligence reports, United Container made nuclear missiles were quickly deployed to the island. Oh god. He pulled out a photograph. Even though it was hard to see from my position, I recognized it as an aerial image of Helgeland. We demand that the Chancellor speak the truth. As you can all see, we have evidence of the construction of silos. Bollocks! Shit, this is huge. Wir sind gerade selbst dabei, einen Krieg zu starten.
Ja.
Trotzdem will ich Shit sagen.
Ja.
If that's true, it's a threat to all of us. I didn't expect them to be so quick after their operation. David looked concerned. No Eastern Macopa nation can accept the installation of weapons of mass destruction in the middle of the Markian Sea. Vielleicht haben wir doch die falsche Seite gewählt mit Neutralität.
Ja, es könnte gefährlich werden.
Emmerich Hegel stood up and kept pounding his fists. We hereby call for the immediate dismantling and withdrawal of all missiles and other offensive weapons from Helgeland. We invite all the member states to support our call for a resolution in accordance with Article 11 of the Valenco Treaty. A lot of noise came from the assembly hall in response. Most of the Western Macopan delegates were clapping, while others either shouted in protest or sat in stony silence. Let us also not forget about the recent events that transpired in another state with socialist teachings. A state that wages war against its own innocent citizens. Wallen.
Okay.
Keep listening. Wir sagen dazu gar nichts. Nicht ein Wort. Wir haben damit nichts zu tun. The purge of the minorities in their country was again largely ignored by the international community. I would go as far to call it a genocide. Wallen violated our past treaties and mobilized their armed forces, deploying them close to our borders and authorizing them to partake in massacres. Lesbia was affected not only by the large wave of refugees coming from Wallen, but by the subsequent government seizures of all of our companies that were active in the country. We hereby call the member states to action against Wallen and its rogue government. Thank you. Honestly, that was not a bad speech. Wollen wir klatschen? Ich weiß es nicht.
Komm.
Okay, klatschen wir. He walked back to his seat amidst enthusiastic applause from most of the Macopan delegates. President Nines waited for the noise to calm down and invited the next speaker, the president of Wallen, Victor Smolek. Smolek stood up. As he walked past Patricio Alvarez, he brushed him aside with an exaggerated sweep of his arms. When he reached the podium, he fumbled with the microphone for a few seconds. Then he smiled at Alvarez mockingly as he raised the height of it. Also, meine Grüße ist. Victor's a funny guy. I think the real chaos will start now.
Oh ja, jetzt geht's richtig auf.
Let's hope not. Victor turned to President Nines and bowed slightly. Oh Gott, okay, wie habe ich den gesprochen? Ich weiß es
Die
nicht
schon
mehr.
mit eine chillige Folge heute.
Ja, fick dich. Mr. President! He then turned back at us and stared out into the hall for a few seconds. Fellow delegates, it is true that the world today faces a multitude of challenges. In the midst of these challenges, the world's most powerful leaders gathered here in Coyote. And what do they do? They make threats, promote hate, and spread lies. Is this the alliance of nations we all want? Where is your cooperation and friendship? Where is the unity? I want to remind you of the wars that the West fought on our soil, of the foreign troops who occupied our country and seized our valuable resources. I want to remind you how they stole the oil from our sacred soil, and they did not know when to stop. The ATO soldiers left, but their interference never ceased. They financed armed rebel groups whose only purpose is to create terror inside our country. So, fellow delegates, don't you dare speak about Wallen before you acknowledge your involvement in our civil war, before you acknowledge your own dark past. Keep watching. As is well known, after the tremendous tragedy of the Wallen Civil War, Acacia made a deal with the United Contender, where they agreed upon the withdrawal of their troops, along with the removal of half of our army. Not only did they weaken us, we were left alone in facing the genocidal Bloodish Freedom Front, which the ATO funds together with Rumbog. Just like the delegate before me, I will show you some of the evidence of foreign interference. He picked up a large stack of papers and waved them back and forth. I have clear evidence of direct aid from Rumbog to the Bloodish Freedom Front. They smuggled tons of KA-74s in Wallen. They smuggled in their spies, smuggled in mercenary commanders. He's finally talking about it. We're not the only ones now. Yay! I should say something. Let Smolok know I'm on his side. He's got balls! Taking on Rumbog in the West like that. Ja, nee, wir bleiben still. Das ist, glaube ich, das Schlauste.
Listening.
These documents will be published everywhere. Copies have already been sent to the investigative affairs in the Alliance of Nations. I expect this organization to do its task and investigate this properly, instead of leaving Wallen behind, as they have always done. Coming back to the claims of lesbian representative. First, there is no evidence of civilian massacres by the Wessex forces, nor so-called purchase of minorities. Second, the operation was limited only to the militant BFF, not the Bloods in general. Third, we know your government is also implicated in the funding of the BFF, and that your oil companies aided their militants during the operation. Fourth, as the state, we only took what was ours. The companies the delegate spoke of were not only aiding militants, they were brought to Wallen by force. Know that Wallen will no longer recognize the right of any other country to determine what type of weapons we are permitted to possess, or what type of policies we follow within our borders. Wallen stands stronger and more united than ever. Our people have spoken. The enemies inside our borders are crushed. Now I ask every delegate here to read our report and connections of the West with the armed militants in Eastern Macopa, and I ask the Alliance of Nations to do what's right. Wallen only wants peace. Our people want peace. They are counting on the support and understanding of all the nations in the world. The proclamation is free welcome or death. The assembly roared with a particularly loud applause coming from the seats of the Rican nations. He seems to be popular with Rickard, doesn't he? Well, he played the victim here pretty strongly, and his anti-imperialist stance has definitely earned him sympathy from Ricans. Most of that continent has still not achieved stability after gaining their independence from the colonial Suzerains. It's easy to forget it has only been a few years since the revolutions. Victor slowly walked back to his seat as he applauded himself. He saluted the Rican delegates as he passed them. Next, President Nines invited Martin van Horten to the podium. He walked up to the microphone with quick steps. He was throwing and clenching his fists. I could almost see his jaw trembling. Okay. It's Helgeland time! Seems like Martin is not in the mood. Can you blame him? Welchem has just occupied Helgeland. Okay. Mr. President, fellow delegates of the Assembly, and friends. It is an honor to be with you today. I wish we could meet under different circumstances. Once again, the CSP nations, and in particular Welksland, have shown us what they were willing to do to achieve their political aims. I must sadly say that the world has left us alone. Ich habe den gesprochen so als Deutscher. Deutscher, der Englisch spricht, der dieses TH und das alles nicht kann. Daran kann ich mich noch erinnern. Ich weiß nicht mehr, ob ich Smollett richtig gesprochen habe. We were one of the first countries to propose proper cooperation between Eastern Macopan nations. Yet, when we were threatened by Welkslandian expansionism, nobody came to our side. Also, Mr. Alvarez voiced his indirect support for us early in today's session. I can't keep myself from wondering where he was when our lands were under invasion by the very socialists he spoke about. So here I am asking for the support of the fellow member states of the Alliance of Nations. Agnolia is under attack by Welksland. A loud banging noise emerged from the table of Welkslandian delegates. All of them were pounding their fists on the table. Mr. President, please moderate the assembly. This is more than disrespectful. Emmerich Hegel began shouting curses as Nines rapidly banged his gavel for order. After a minute of back and forth shouting, the noise settled and Nines allowed Martin to continue. As you all know, Helgeland, which had been a territory of Agnolia for more than 3 decades, was invaded by Welksland in a sudden attack. Not only did they unlawfully occupy our land, they brought nuclear missiles to the island the moment our forces retreated. Millennia-wist terror surrounds us all sides. We must not falter. I invite all member states to find a resolution in accordance with Article 11 of the Falenco Treaty, enforcing the immediate dismantling of all missiles from Helgeland. I must also remind you that under Article 3 of the Ventry City Treaty, the Alliance of Nations must ensure the withdrawal of the occupying forces from the island. I call the democratic world to action against the tyranny of millennialism, authoritarian, oh mein Gott, authoritarianism, militarism and extremism. The banging noise started again. Hegel stood up and approached the rostrum. Hegel hatten wir noch nicht.
Hatten wir den noch nicht?
Nee, der wollte uns nicht haben. Der wollte uns nicht treffen.
Uiuiui. Ich kann heute auch noch reden.
Ja.
You're a spineless jerk. A lackey of occasion imperialism.
President Nines called for silence and started hitting the gavel. Look at the old man go!
Go, go, go!
Sollen wir es mit einem mischen?
Nee, ich glaube, das ist
nicht.
Nicht gut. All of your complaints against us are direct result of your capitalist and colonialist systems.
President Nines, please, what is this? President Nines smacked his gavel in vain as a shouting match broke out in the assembly. Finally, after a few minutes, the other Icelandic delegates convinced Hegel to sit back down. I believe I don't need to speak more about this subject. Everything is clear as day. Mr. Hegel's actions speak volumes about the reality of Wexland and their corrupted ideology. I hope to see this conflict resolved with the help of the Alliance of Nations soon. He quickly left the podium and nodded to the other Ignolian delegates. The two left the assembly hall. President Nine announced the next speaker, Emmerich Hegel. Hegel immediately took his place and spoke in a low, setting tone.
Thank you. Seething, Alter, der muss ja... Kommt ja schon Rauch aus den Ohren.
Ja. Stay silent. Here we go.
First of all, I want to extend a due welcome to the new states from Rica that have joined this organization.
Hallo.
Hallo.
Wir sind glaube ich auch neu. Ich weiß es nicht.
As our numbers grow in more
warte.
states...
Ich habe wieder 2 Minuten.
After fighting for years against colonialism and imperialism, they more than earned our membership votes. I'm overjoyed to see them finally represented in this assembly. As our numbers grow and more states are represented in this stage, we come ever closer to finding resolutions to the conflicts that plague us. For hundreds of years, the dominant economies of Macopa raced, pillaged and exploited the continents of Rica and Sina. Sadly, Wexland was also part of this plunder in the years before the revolution, when it still clung to the idea of imperialism.
Ich hätte gerne eine ganze Weltkarte hier.
Echt so?
Ich will wissen, was Rica und Xina für ein Kontinent sind. Ist das Afrika? Sind wir das Afrika?
Wir werden es nie wissen.
Nee.
But when our masters found their voice, the old colonial powers and the new financiers turned against them. These powers did whatever they could to hamper our revolutions. They did not want the people to be heard. They are scared of us for showing the possibility of a better path. Of course, they don't want to succeed. We threaten the productivity that runs on the blood and sweat of their working class. And now they have started labeling us the aggressor. Yet we all know it was the occasions who built up military bases all around Macopa. It was the ATO that was first formed to fight against millennialism. Bullshit.
Keep watching.
Hageland was, is, and will be Wixlandian territory. Our intervention in the island was completely justified. Mr. Delegates brought up the Falenco and Ventry City treaties. However, they're forgetting about the Treaty of Constantium. Wexland exercised its right to intervene on behalf of our people. were being oppressed and massacred by the Agnolian government just because they did not recognize and appoint a governor. They didn't get to elect one. We acted in full accordance with the second article of the treaty. If there's a side to be blamed, it is the state which murders its minorities for publicly showing support to our nation. There were also claims about illegal missiles. No country in the world has the right to determine what type of weapons we import. If there's a conflict the Alliance can resolve, let's start with the Acacian base on Ravenous Island. Lesbia has been housing Acacian troops and missiles by our border for years, and none of the member states even talked about it. I also want the member states to look into the Acacian bases in both Lesbia and Swordland.
Ich dachte, wir kommen hier raus, ohne dass wir einmal erwähnt werden, aber nein, natürlich nicht.
And if the Alliance of Nations truly claims to have the people's best interest at heart, they cannot stay silent about what the Agnolian government did in Helgeland. How they took away the rights of our people. Perhaps then, there can be proper dialogue between our nations. And the Alliance of Nations can finally demonstrate that it can serve its intended purpose. But unfortunately, the Alliance of Nations remains all too willing to overlook such human rights violations. However, the Vexlandian government is ready, as always, to fight the forces of oppression and colonial servitude on behalf of free people everywhere.
He raised his left fist.
Evoluten Vescor.
Was ist das Sordisch? Did I caught that right? Das war wahrscheinlich nicht Sordisch, aber wir fragen trotzdem mal nach. He said the revolution will come. Yes, but it was in Old Welgish. Very similar to Sordish, right? Some words are even written the same way, but I'm surprised he caught that from his accent. Most of the delegates from Xena, Rika and Contana responded with thunderous applause. Hegel shook hands with them as he walked back to his seat.
Oh Mann, das hätte lustig werden können, wenn ich gewusst hätte, dass der einen Akzent hat.
President Nines announced the next speaker, Queen Beatrice Livingston.
Oh boy.
Fucking Rumburg. Darfst auch du lesen.
Oh.
Ja.
Oi.
Ich habe heute schon zu viel.
Dear President of the Assembly, dear delegates, dear leaders of the world.
Fick dich!
Buh!
So, alles ist still! Ja, alles ist still! Dann kommst du von Swordland, fick dich!
Just as my fellow Eastern Macopan delegates
Fellow.
spoke about the troubles plaguing our continent,
Die Schnauze.
I also have to bring attention to a growing threat in our region, Swordland. As you know, not long ago, Swordish aircraft with offensive capabilities were spotted inside our borders.
You bitch!
Also wenn ich einen englischen Akzent drauf hätte, dann wäre das auch noch gut. Now they are ramping up their military forces. The northern divisions have been mobilized. Military parades are taking place. These developments concern us greatly. They took in traitors and gave them protection. The president even went so far as to blame our country for spying on his administration through his own private secretary. And he expects the world to believe his lies.
I can't let her speak about us like that. Let's first hear her out.
I hereby invite all of you to determine the initiation of a proper intergovernmental investigation into Swordland. If the Alliance continues to shirk its given duties, you can trust in Rumburg to take matters into her own hands. It is also important to point out that Rumburg will not stand idly by if more Cajun military are transferred to Eastern Macopa. I hereby condemn both the ATO and Swordland for allowing Acacia to settle in our region. Before I finish, I also want to say, Mr. Smolek, I'm looking forward to reading your report. I wonder what this so-called evidence is all about. Know that your slander does not work on us. Know that we are ready to die for our freedom. Know that our kingdom stands firm and strong.
Bitch.
Expect a grand awakening. Thank you. Ja, die wird schon sehen, was auf sie zukommt.
Yeah. She left the rostrum without getting much applause. Then President Nines spoke my name. Mr. Anton Rainey, President of Swordland, I invite you to address the assembly. David immediately started applauding. Good luck, Mr. President. I walked up to the rostrum and took my place at the podium. In front of me were some of the most powerful leaders in the entire world. I looked them in the eyes. Thank you, Mr. President, fellow delegates. Oh Gott.
Schon mal nicht, das ist sehr schleimerisch.
Ja, 2.
Ja.
The speakers who have preceded me have expressed their concerns about their problems. Ja, 2.
Ja.
We too are concerned about some of those problems and would like to expand on them. Drei oder 1?
Beides ist stark.
Ich würd 3 sagen.
Ja.
Our world is faced with the dangers of division, the dangers of large military alliances and nuclear arms races. Das ist alles scheiße, weil wir einen Krieg starten.
Ja.
Das ist alles nicht optimal.
Das 1 geht schon mal nicht.
Nee, eher 3. 2 ist
Ja.
auch, 2 geht auch überhaupt nicht.
2 wäre eine ganz schöne Beleidigung.
Ja. Today we are confronted by a difficult choice. Our great achievements may either be used for the benefit or to the determine of mankind. Now I'd like to address some of the topics mentioned here today.
Ja, die können wir nicht ignorieren, also.
It was earlier claimed that Welchem was involved in a genocide. Such strong words shouldn't be spoke without proper evidence. Oh fuck. Das war doch ein Fehler!
Shit.
Ja, aber 1. Wir können es jetzt nicht gegen Welchem stellen.
Ja.
It was earlier claimed that Welchem was involved in a genocide. Such strong words shouldn't be spoken without proper evidence. Fuck.
Okay, jetzt müssen wir Damage Control machen.
Ja. Wir können 3 nicht sagen. Weil dann würden wir zugeben. Wir können... 1 ist vielleicht too strong. Aber die ersten 2.
Ja, mit dem People ist besser als mit der Regierung.
Ja. Scotland stands together with the Wessex people. I also would like to address the Queen of Rumburg. She talked about some hypothetical threat that our nation posed. The real threat to Eastern Macopa has always been Rumburg. Today, it's still the case. Zwei.
Zwei oder 3?
Ich würde sagen 2.
Alright.
It was Rumburg who shot our aircraft within our airspace. We only defended our borders. The Rumburgian aircraft that was shot down was flying in our airspace. Wann haben wir eine Aircraft von denen runtergeschossen?
Wenn ich gesagt, dass wir... Ne, warte,
Wir haben gesagt, sie sollen sich vorbereiten, sie sollen nicht auch einen runterschießen. Ah, egal, 1. Ne, wir haben nicht gesagt, die sollen einen runterschießen.
Ah.
It was Rumburg who shot our aircraft within our airspace. We only defended our borders. Oh, 1 oder 3? Ich würde ja sagen 1.
Ja.
I also have some evidence to show to the assembly. Mr. Smollett was right about the KA-74s. Rumburg has definitely been arming the BFF in Swordland. Ja, eher 2. We discovered that many militant groups in Swordland were being financed or armed by Rumburg.
Was ist das erste?
Wir haben einen Whistleblower. Also wir haben zum einen einen Whistleblower bei denen in der Regierung und zum anderen haben wir einen aufgenommen, der... also wir haben einem Asyl gewährt aus Rumburg, der uns Informationen gibt. Aber können wir das sagen? Eher nicht.
Das wird ihren Claim, dass wir...
Dass sie halt uns ausspionieren, würde es hinfällig machen, weil wir sie ausspionieren.
Ne, sie hat irgendwie gesagt, dass sie irgendwem Protection und so geben.
Achso, ja genau, stimmt. Das hat sie auch gesagt.
Und das wäre dann sozusagen eine Bestätigung.
Genau.
Ja.
Deswegen hätte ich jetzt eher 3 gesagt.
Ja.
I hereby declare Rumburg as a dangerous threat to Swordland and Eastern Macopa. Know that we will do what's necessary to counter that threat.
I'd like to bring my speech to a close.
Now I'd like to bring my speech to a close.
Zwei?
2 hätte ich jetzt auch gesagt. We stand and always will stand for the rights of the people of Swordland and Eastern Macopa, just as those in other continents. Drei.
Okay, drei. Okay, ja, gut, drei.
The people of Swordland are honored to have expressed our concerns before this noble assembly. Können wir 2 machen?
Ja.
Okay. Am Morgen of his score. There was some applause from the assembly. Thank you.
Ja, thank you.
I left the podium. I walked back to my seat. David did not stop applauding until I sat down. How was it? It was not a bad speech, Mr. President. You did well. President Nines announced the next speaker, Dwight Walker. Den warst auch du. Das warst ja auch du. Oh, XXL. Ich glaube, wir haben doch in dem Let's Play noch keine so lange Folge, ne?
Echt so. Mr. President, I first want to congratulate you on your election to this high office. Mr. Secretary, delegates of the Alliance of Nations, ladies and gentlemen, fellow friends. We meet again on our quest to bring peace and light into this world. But even though some of the clouds have lifted, the world has not yet escaped the darkness. The Content and Security Pact is rapidly expanding its influence. It is very troubling to see a democratic nation of Macopa be invaded by those Millennialist powers. I refer, of course, to Hageland's occupation by Waxland. This is an attack against the lasting peace the world has enjoyed since this century of revolutions. Today, our peacekeeping obligations are being tested by United Container and the Millennialists' bloc, if we fail to counter and stop this threat. If we stay idle and allow them to build new walls and weapons of hostility. If the attackers do not face any consequences. Then this unstable peace we believed we had built will be the world's downfall, and posterity will point its finger at us for not stopping it.
Emmerich Hegel and the other Wilkesian delegates started making noise again. This time Hegel had taken off his shoe and was banging on the table with it. What the heck?
I have no words. The Chancellor's commands. Ich stelle mir das Bild nicht so vor, wie dieser alte Mann mit seinem Schuh auf den Tisch schlägt.
Das ist so schön. It's getting ridiculous. He's not even ashamed at this age.
Despite its claims, the CSP's actions will only bring about war. We believe the United Container and Acacia, together with their allies, could come to an understanding, for our mutual benefit and our desire to avoid the destruction of the world. Yet, United Container keeps acting in complete disregard to international law. Their allies are forcefully taking land and imposing their own values on the people of those lands. I will say this to the leaders of United Container. If either of us is to be secure, we need a peaceful cooperation. Not nuclear missiles, those of naval superiority, or invasions. If the leaders of United Container fail to demilitarize Hageland, with complete dismantling of the nuclear missiles and the withdrawal of the occupying Waxlanian forces, the ATO will have to take matters into our own hands.
Hegel stood up with the shoe in his hands.
What is that supposed to mean? You're promoting war in the Alliance of Nations? Mr. President, this cannot...
Nine slammed the gavel down and shouted, "Silence, please!"
Mr. Chancellor, please let me finish. We did not interrupt you when you addressed the Assembly. I must also raise my concerns about the threat that Ramberg posed to Eastern Macopa. The speakers who preceded me clearly showed that tensions are rising. The reports from Welland and Swartland are troubling. The representatives from both countries referred to KA-74s being smuggled within their borders. Acacia and the ATO will stand against the aggression of Rumburg. They are playing a dangerous game, one that may bring ruin to Macopa and their own lands. I believe the Alliance of Nations can find a resolution to this conflict as well. If not, let it be known that Acacia will stand together with Swartland. Rumburg cannot do as it pleases. Nice!
Nice!
Ich sehe uns mit Whisky gerade so ein High Five geben.
That's great news. I hope he means it. Hätte ich jetzt gesagt. This is definitely good news. Acacia's showing clear support for us.
Finally, I propose that the Alliance of Nations undertake the noble cause of helping the people of the world through rewriting and properly enforcing its Human Rights Declaration. The Alliance of Nations cannot survive as a static organization. Its size and duties are increasing enormously. It should adapt to the changing world. But peace and rights do not rest in the hands of this organization alone. They rely on the hearts of our people and the spirit of cooperation between our nations. So let it be known, my fellow inhabitants of this world, let us take our stand and see if we can finally achieve a lasting peace. Thank you.
Most of the assembly applauded his speech, the ATO delegates in particular.
Stand up and applaud.
I stood up and applauded. The applause continued for some time. Walker shook hands with various delegates on his way back to his seat. President Nines announced the last speaker before the break. Break? Oh god! It was Leon Maleniev. Maleniev slowly walked to the rostrum in his iconic suit. All of the CSP delegates stood up and applauded him.
Boah, ist das ein krasses Rot.
Honorable Chairman and fellow delegates to the Alliance of Nations. Here we are again at the most esteemed meeting of state representatives in the world. However, increasingly we are being threatened, disregarded, attacked, or ignored in this assembly. The representative of Acacia has just shown his unfriendly attitude towards us yet again. Acacia would have you believe we are standing in the way of lasting peace. Yet the peace they talk about was only possible thanks to our missiles and our growing base in the developing world. The ATO kept waging wars against people's revolutions and forcing new independent states to be with their puppets, binding them to themselves through the Acacian lyre. And now, yet another Acacian president is telling us that we are the aggressors, and they are the keepers of peace. We will not be silent anymore against these lies. When was this peace you talk about? When was this cooperation between our countries? Have you ever accepted our invitation to talk about denuclearization? If you don't like us, don't accept our deals, don't listen to our concerns, and keep pointing fingers at us, why did you invite us to the Alliance of Nations? Every year, United Container comes to this assembly to address the real problems of real people. People who suffer because of your systems, your wars, your ignorance. Whether you like it or not, we'll keep representing the laborers, the slaves, the oppressed of this world, and believe it or disregard it, history is on our side. We say to the representatives of capitalist countries, come and visit us. Come and see the revolution working in Contana. Show our continent to your people without distorting the reality. If you cannot do that, then you need to come. We believe socialism will triumph over capitalism in the end. Such is the logical conclusion of the development of humankind. This time, lesbian delegates started laughing very loudly. Some other delegates booed. Ridiculous. Maleniev or the laughing. Yeah, Maleniev's remarks. You can keep laughing, gentlemen. Communism will bury you. Suddenly, the laughing turned into shouting. If you really believe in cooperation, we will be waiting. We're not going anywhere. However, if the ATO keeps intervening in our matters, it is natural that the CSP would react. Despite threats from the ATO, Ramburg, or any other nation or organization, we must not succumb to further division and violence. We must ask ourselves, what do the people of our countries expect from us? They surely don't want war and bloodshed. So let us leave to our children and grandchildren good memories of our time and a better future for all. Let them look at history and say, once there were great division and complex problems, but the leaders of the world came together in the alliance of nations and succeeded in settling them down in order to ensure our peaceful lives. Let us act in such a way to make this session not a session of threats, but a session of hopes, and the realization of them. The government of United Contana and the United Peoples of Contana are ready to serve their duties for world peace. Long live the People's Revolution. The assembly broke into massive applause. The applause continued for some time. Maleniev slowly walked back to his seat as the president announces a break. That was a lot. It was definitely. It's quite scary, to be honest. We need to be careful. We walked out of the hall and have some lunch and fresh air.
Oh.
Ist das dann nächste Folge Teil 2? Nee.
Oh, gut.
Das war's! Oh mein Gott! Lasst doch ein Like und ein Abo, wenn es euch gefallen hat. Schaut beim nächsten Mal vorbei. Morgen 14 Uhr geht's weiter und tschüss.
Tschüss.